real pretty. On this video, I'm going to teach you how to make a wagon wheel motif. I'm going to be using a 4mm hook and some cotton yarn size 3. We're going to start with a slip knot and we're going to start with a base ring. For your base ring, you want to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we want to close this ring by doing a slip stitch into the very first chain that you made. So into that chain, we insert our hook, grab the yarn, and pull through to close with a slip stitch. Now we're going to be working into the center of the ring. So now for row 1, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to do 1 half double crochet into the ring. So into the center of the ring, just a half double crochet. And this counts as your first puff stitch, the chain 3 and the half double crochet. Now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to work a puff stitch. For a puff stitch, you want to yarn over, insert the hook into the ring, grab the yarn and pull up a loop. You can pull it up a little bit tall and do that again. Yarn over, insert your hook into the ring, grab the yarn and pull up a loop. So you're going to have 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 5. And that's a puff stitch. Now we're going to chain 1. And we want to do this 6 more times. So puff stitch and chain 1. Yarn over into the center of the ring, insert your hook, grab the yarn and pull up a loop. And do that again. Yarn over, insert your hook into the ring, grab the yarn and pull up a loop. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. And now a chain 1. So this is what we want to do 5 more times. I'm going to do it one more time with you. Puff stitch. And then a chain 1. And that's what we want to do. Let's do this a total of 7 times since the first puff stitch. So 1, 2, 3. I got to do it 4 more times. I'll see you when I'm done. Okay, I just did my 7th repetition. And now we're going to do a slip stitch into the top of the first puff stitch. That first puff stitch was the chain 3 and half double crochet that you made. So technically you can go into the top of the half double crochet with a slip stitch. And this here is the end of row 1. For row 2, we want to do a slip stitch into the next chain space. So between the first half double crochet that you made in the previous row and the first puff stitch, and between there, let's do a slip stitch. And now we want to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now we want to do 1 double crochet into the first chain space. So into where we are currently, we're going to yarn over and do a double crochet. Now we're going to chain 2. And then into the next chain space, you want to do 2 double crochets. So the next chain space, by the way, is the space between the puff stitches of the previous row. So into that next chain space, we're going to do 2 double crochets. And then a chain 2. And this is what we want to do all the way around. We find the next chain space. Into it, do 2 double crochets. And then a chain 2. We want to do this all the way around. I'll see you when you're done. You do 2 double crochets into each chain space and then a chain 2. Okay, and I just did my final repetition into the last chain space. And now to finish off, we want to do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that you started with. So we find the top of that chain 3, which is the 3rd chain. Into it, we do a slip stitch. And this here is the end of row 2. For row 3, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first double crochet of the previous row. And then 1 slip stitch into the first chain space. From here, we want to chain 3. And into the same chain space, you want to do 1 double crochet, a chain 1, and then 2 double crochets into the same space. And then a chain 1. Now we're going to move on to the next chain space. Into there, you want to do 2 double crochets, a chain 1, then into the same space another 2 double crochets, and a chain 1. And that's the repetition you want all the way around. Into each chain space you want to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. I'll do it one more time with you. Find the next chain space and do 2 double crochets, chain 1, and into the same space 2 double crochets, chain 1. So do this all the way around into each chain space, and I'll see you when you're done. Okay, I just finished the last repetition into the last chain space. To finish off this row, you want to do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that you started with. So we find the top of that chain 3 and do a slip stitch. And this here is the end of row 3. For row 4, we want to do a slip stitch into the first double crochet of the previous row, and then a slip stitch into the first chain space. So that chain 1 space between the double crochets. From here, we want to chain 3. And then you want to do 2 double crochets into the same chain space. So into the same chain space, 2 double crochets. That's 1. And here is 2. Now we want to chain 1. Find the next chain 1 space. And into it, we're going to do 3 double crochets. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to chain 1, and then find the next chain 1 space, and into it do 3 double crochets. And then you chain 1. So this is basically what we want to do all the way around. Into each of the chain 1 spaces, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 1. 3 double crochets, chain 1. Let's do it one more time together. We find the next chain 1 space and do 3 double crochets. And then a chain 1. This is what you want to do all the way around. Remember, the chain 1 spaces are between, so between the 2 double crochets, but then also between, I mean, they're all double crochets, but you know how you have the kind of clusters into the 1 chain space of the previous row, and then the 1 chain 1 space between the next cluster. You got to make sure that you go into each one of the chain 1 spaces all the way around. I'll see you when you're done. Okay, I just finished the last repetition into the last chain space. And so now to finish off this row, we want to do a slip stitch into the third chain of the chain 3 that you started with. We find that chain, insert our hook, and then do a slip stitch. And this here is the end of row 4. For row 5, we want to do a slip stitch into the first chain space. So we're going to do a slip stitch into each of the double crochets that you have first, and then into the chain space. So now from here, we're going to do a chain 3. And then into the same chain space, you want to do 3 double crochets. So here is 1, 2, and 3. And now we want to chain 1. Now into each of the chain 1 spaces around, what you want to do is you want to do 4 double crochets. So find the first chain space, do 4 double crochets. That's 2, 3, and 4. And then you want to chain 1. And that's what we want to do all the way around. Into each of the chain 1 spaces, you do 4 double crochets. This is 2, 3, 4, and then a chain 1. And this is what we want to do all the way around. I'll see you when you're done. Okay, so I just went all the way around. And now to finish off this row, we want to do a slip stitch into the third chain of the chain 3 that you started with. And this here is the end of row 5. Now, if you want to make this bigger, you can actually continue to repeat rows 4 and 5. But after row 5, you want to do a chain 2 in between the double crochet groups. So not a chain 1, just a chain 2 between the double crochet groups. And that way you can make it just a wider circle if you'd like. You can go ahead and cut off your yarn and thread your ends through. And here we have it. This is a beautiful circle. As I mentioned earlier, you can make this larger and it'll kind of maintain the same effect. But yeah, it's really easy to work. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a granny square turned into a circle because of the clusters of double crochets that you work. But yeah. Hey, while you're at it, why don't you just subscribe to my channel? Just do it. Just do it.